Karim, you're doing a lot of things at the same time. You're the host of your own podcast. You have you've been building custom gym bags for a decade and a half, and you're also into Web3 and crypto. So the obvious first question I have is, where do you spend most of your time, and why all these different industries at the same time? It's a very interesting, diverse set of businesses.
Yeah, it seems much more chaotic than it really is. I spend most of my time doing what pays the bills, which is working. I work for Halate. Halate is the founding entity and the software arm of Apex Fusion, which is a crypto project. Very happy enjoying it. As part of my work with them as an advisory consultant, I also host a community podcast called Fusing the Unfusable. So they're both, let's say it's the same thing. Our ability to outreach, build a community, get people to share their insights, share their questions, and communicate back internally to the team, but also help other founders, other builders in the space, other thought leaders share their knowledge and how they overcome some of the challenges. So that's the main part of my work, and I'd say that's 95% of my time. My gym bag business is a passion side hustle. I've never pushed it to the level where it could be like a full-time job. I'm still trying to get my nephew and my daughter, who are both passionate about fitness and design, to take it over. So for the moment, it just remains a passion side hustle.
Yeah, I like it. I like that it's still running after a decade and a half.
Well, it's very small, and I have the right resources to be able to produce custom gym bags on demand. From time to time, I do innovate and I change and I add a couple of designs, and you'll see a burst of social media activity, and then it dies down. And depends how busy I am and who's helping me at the time.
So let's talk about what's keeping you busy. You're an advisor in this Web3 company, crypto company. How did you get into crypto? And what is your role exactly? Because your background is not necessarily someone who's, been into this space for a long time. I mean, I'm just curious about how you ended up doing this today.
That's a good question. So I'm an advisory consultant. What does that mean? I am an advisor. How I got into, I'll tell you more about what I do later. Let me tell you first how I got into it. First, I got into digital transformation about 10 years ago. Digital transformation is maybe not understood by everyone. It's basically the ability to automate company work, right? Automate activities or capabilities. I got into that formerly as a consultant, but as I got into it, and I realized that my whole career, and it spans over 30 years, I've been automating. I've been automating from inside, not as a consultant. So whether it was implementing software, whether it was engineering software, which I did when I was in the shipping business. I architected the software for a port terminal in Haiti. And then implementing the software, where I got into change management, which is another, let's say, one of my tools in my tool chest. Change management, for those that don't know, is basically this idea of managing how an organization adopts and changes, and how do you nudge an organization and the stakeholders within the organization, or even stakeholders that are not within the organization, to use the technology, and thinking about all the psychological barriers and obstacles to change, which we know are usually the challenge. A lot of software gets dropped or canceled, or projects get canceled because people are just refusing to use it, whatever the reason, whether it's poor design or fear of using it. Let's look at AI right now. How many people do you know that refuse to look at AI because they believe it's going to take away their job, or they feel it's going to be, detrimental to society, and so forth? So I also address that very, very deeply. Psychological and behavioral economics, psychology and behavioral economics are also topics that I've studied deeply and think about a lot. Now, how I got into crypto from that is basically during the pandemic, as I saw that money was being printed. And for those that, I wonder, sometimes people say governments print money, but do they really know what that is? Let's define it. And basically, the government, any government needs cash. They're, usually out of cash. And they basically call up the central bank and say, I need to write checks. We need to write checks to pay people. In the case of the pandemic, it was basically pay people to stay home. So they would stay home and reduce the chance of contagion without getting into any, conspiracy theories or, discussions about why they wanted to keep people at home. And the bank says, well, I don't have any cash. And the bank says, well, I'll give you a piece of paper. And that's usually a treasury bill or a bond, right? So that's basically what printing money is. It's literally printing money out of thin air and then creating a paper trail. And it's debt, right? So now the government is indebted to pay that money back. But when you add a lot of money to an economy without adding value, without adding goods, without adding more real estate or generating any value, what happens is the money loses its value. I love the example of, if you have 10 people living in a town and each of them has a $1,000 and there's, 3 houses in town, and then suddenly you give everyone $1 million, the price of that house is going to go up very quick, right? Those houses are going to go up very quick because there's less houses than people. Everybody wants a house. And then it's basically just gets, the price of the house just goes up, right? Because people are outbidding themselves. So that's really what happened in those economies in the West that did pay people to stay home. And I looked at that and it triggered something. Now, of course, I'd heard about Bitcoin, but I never had a friend teach me how to open a wallet. I'd actually had an account on one of the exchanges, never really understood it, never understood cryptography, never had the access to the resources or never really paid attention. And I took a deep dive. I had some free time. And once I got into the rabbit hole, it led to books, many books, courses, online courses, everything I could find. And I discovered a couple of companies and a couple of crypto assets, digital assets that I liked. I started to invest a little bit, not that much, just a little bit. And then I fell in love with one of the companies, Cardano. And I basically made it my mission to work for them. And after finding ways, looking online, I finally I approached them. I applied for a role, and I was able to work with them for 6 months. For 6 months as an advisory consultant, and it was eye-opening. And from there, my network in the crypto field grew. After I left them, I went back to digital transformation consulting, which was my career since it had been for several years, working on big projects in the region here in the Gulf, whether it was the extension of the Dubai Metro, managing the requirements platform, whether it was the TAM digital transformation of Abu Dhabi, which is basically unifying all the government services on one platform, where I was a senior change manager, whether it was automating and writing strategies and designing, even writing tenders for the implementation for semi-government entities. And I went back to the venture. I went back to that space with this new love of crypto, and I kept learning and with a new eye. And then I got into venture building. I was called in to come and help basically build what's called a digital asset custodian, basically a private bank for crypto. While I was there, I discovered my love for venture building. And I think this is my new passion. And this is where I kind of aspire and enjoy being in that space, which is basically helping companies start up and in specifically via a specific model called the venture studio model. I believe that's the best model versus if you compare it to VCs or incubators and accelerator programs. I believe the venture studio is the best way to successfully build ventures. And now, basically, my role with Apex Fusion is so. Back to your question, what do I do for them? I basically help them in operations. I write strategies. I advise both the foundation and obviously the founders. I work with them very closely on various initiatives and kind of helping them forge what the venture building capability that they need as part of their tokenomics will look like. And it's a few years away, possibly. And that's where I'm currently really focusing on.
Karim, we're running out of time, so I want to ask you this final question. Are you doing this because of principles or opportunity or both? Because it sounds like you're really with the entire description, into the money printing, the transformation of the way we operate. I mean, with all these metaphors, I feel like it's more than just an opportunity. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'll give you a final closing statement that I hopefully you like. I think there's various ways to live a life. You could go into a career, and you're young enough to probably think about this and follow a certain path, become a doctor, become a lawyer, and make that your career path for the next 20, 30, 40 years until you retire. I chose not to do that. I became an engineer and I wanted to stay in Canada. So I took the first job I could find so that I could stay in Canada. And I got into, chemical drying. I got into paper. Then I moved to the Caribbean. I got into shipping. So I had a very spontaneous, career where I did whatever I had to do to make sure that I could, have a job and something that I was enjoying and good at. And out of all that, when I distill it down, there's a lot of automation. I've become a technology optimist, a term that I recently got from one of my guests on the podcast. I consider myself to be a tech optimist. I love technology. I love implementing technology, and that's what I do. I preach technology. I talk about Bitcoin. I talk about, preserving wealth, because there's nothing worse than working hard, building that economic power, putting it in a bank account, and then watching it slowly degrade or get locked up, as in the case in Lebanon or other countries that have had that issue. So how do we preserve our wealth? I believe it's through Bitcoin. And obviously there's still other ways, right? Real estate, gold, things like that. And then how do we improve the way we work and we live to stay healthy? We use AI now for health. I'm hoping AI is going to cure a lot of diseases. How do we work better? And then, we have to adjust our lifestyles accordingly, because we're not working in the farm. We're not working day and night. So we have to go to the gym and make up for it, because if we stop moving, if we don't stay healthy, we get sick. So yeah, it's basically what I do, right? I implement and I preach exactly what I do. I go to the gym to try and stay healthy and fit. I use a lot of technology to advance my life and build that economic power so that I can live longer, take care of my family, and preserve and help them preserve their wealth. And my friends that ask me will also get the same advice.
Well, that's a great mindset, Karim. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.